The conference room was filled with soft murmurs and polite laughter, the kind of laughter that often carried a sharp edge beneath its polished surface. At the far end of the long mahogany table, a girl stood nervously clutching a file to her chest. Her clothes were simple, slightly faded, and her shoes, though neatly cleaned, were worn at the edges. Her trembling hands betrayed her fear as she prepared to present her ideas in front of some of the most powerful people in the city. And then it happened. A burst of laughter broke out from a group of young interns, their voices slicing through her fragile courage like knives. The girl's face flushed red as whispers spread across the room. Her lips quivered as she tried to steady herself, but her voice cracked with the weight of humiliation. Just as she lowered her head in defeat, a sudden sharp voice rang out across the hall. "Don't laugh at her!" The room froze. Every head turned toward the commanding figure who had just spoken. It was Adrian Carter, the CEO of the company, known not just for his business empire, but for his piercing eyes and unshakable authority. His words cut through the silence like thunder, and for the first time, someone had stood up for the girl who felt invisible. Back into Next Pointing Right, before we dive deeper into this emotional story. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of standing up for others, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel Acts of Kindness. Together, we can spread more stories that inspire and touch lives. Her name was Lily. She wasn't from a wealthy family, nor did she have the polished background of the others who sat in that luxurious room. She had grown up in a small neighborhood where every penny mattered, where books were secondhand and dreams often had to be traded for survival. Yet she had always carried in her heart a fire, a belief that her ideas, no matter how small, could one day make a difference. That fire had brought her here, to the headquarters of Carter Enterprises, where she had managed to secure a chance to present her community project proposal. But she had not expected the ridicule. She had not expected the sneers that whispered behind expensive suits and glittering jewelry. She had walked in with nothing but hope, and hope was fragile when surrounded by cruelty. Adrian Carter had been watching quietly until that moment. He had seen her struggle, seen the way she clenched her file as if it held not just papers, but the last pieces of her dignity. He knew that look, for he had once seen it in his own mother's eyes when she was dismissed by those who thought they were better. That memory had carved itself into his soul, and he had sworn never to let another human being feel that same sting in his presence. So, when he raised his voice, it wasn't just anger. It was protection. The room fell silent as his words echoed. The interns shifted uncomfortably, their smirks erased. Lily looked up, startled, her wide eyes filled with confusion. No one had ever defended her like this before. "Go ahead," Adrian said firmly, gesturing for her to continue. His voice softened slightly, but his eyes remained steady, almost as if he were lending her his strength. Lily took a deep breath. For a moment, she wanted to run. She wanted to escape the heavy stairs and hide where no one could laugh at her again. But then, she remembered the children in her neighborhood. The ones who studied under streetlights because their homes were too dark, the mothers who skipped meals so their children could eat, the fathers who worked 2 jobs but still couldn't afford their daughter's education. She remembered why she was here. Her hands stopped trembling. Slowly, she opened her file and began to speak. Her voice was still soft, but it carried a conviction that silenced the doubts around her. She spoke of a project designed to provide low-cost learning spaces for underprivileged children. She described how small contributions and unused corporate spaces could be transformed into hubs of education, giving children a future they otherwise would never see. As she spoke, her words painted vivid images of possibility. For the first time, people in the room weren't looking at her clothes or her shoes. They were looking at her vision. Adrian leaned forward, listening intently. Something in her words stirred him. It wasn't just the project. It was the way she spoke with her whole heart, as if each sentence carried the weight of every child who had been forgotten by society. The room was different now. The same people who had laughed moments ago now sat in silence, hanging on to her every word. And when she finally finished, the silence turned into a quiet storm of applause. this time genuine, respectful, even admiring. But Lily couldn't clap for herself. She stood frozen, tears welling in her eyes. She hadn't expected this. She had prepared herself for rejection, for humiliation, for another door to close in her face. What she hadn't prepared for was someone to believe in her. Adrian stood up, breaking the applause. His tall frame cast a long shadow across the room, but his voice was calm and clear. "This," he said, pointing at Lily's file, "is not just an idea. This is a reminder of what we are supposed to stand for, and it will be supported." The decision was final. Just like that, Lily's project, which had been born in the tiny corners of her imagination, was given wings. But the story didn't end there. For Lily, the project was not about recognition or personal glory. She worked tirelessly, often late into the night, coordinating with volunteers, collecting resources, and transforming empty halls into learning centers filled with laughter, chalk dust, and hope. At first, it was overwhelming. There were days she broke down, days when she thought she wasn't enough. Yet, every time she felt her strength falter, she remembered that moment in the conference room when someone had raised their voice for her. Adrian, though he rarely showed it, kept a close watch. He admired her resilience, her ability to rise every time she was pushed down. He saw in her the same hunger he had once carried as a boy trying to prove himself to a world that underestimated him. Slowly, a bond grew between them, not of wealth and power, but of mutual respect and unspoken gratitude. As months passed, the centers began to flourish. Children who had never held a proper book now recited poems with confidence. Girls who once thought their only future was labor now dreamed of becoming doctors, engineers, and teachers. The laughter that once mocked Lily was now replaced with the laughter of children whose worlds had been changed forever. But life is never without trials. One evening, when a storm damaged one of the learning centers, Lily felt crushed. All her hard work seemed to collapse in front of her. Standing in the broken hall, rain pouring through shattered windows, she sobbed like the little girl she once was, scared and lost. And it was there that Adrian appeared once again, not in a suit this time, but with sleeves rolled up, carrying supplies, ready to help. He didn't say much. He didn't have to. His presence reminded her that she was not alone anymore. Together with volunteers, they rebuilt what was broken stronger than before. The day the first batch of children graduated from the program, Lily stood on the stage with tears streaming down her face. The same people who once doubted her now clapped and celebrated her vision. Adrian watched from the crowd, pride hidden in his usually stoic eyes. He knew that the laughter that once tried to break her had instead become the force that built her. Her journey was proof that kindness, when given at the right moment, could change everything. One voice raised in her defense had turned humiliation into hope, weakness into strength, and a poor girl into a beacon of light for countless others. Back in index pointing right, if this story touched your heart, if it reminded you of the power of standing up for others, please like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel, Acts of Kindness. Your engagement helps us keep spreading stories that inspire and heal. Speech balloon, before we end, we have a special request. Comment below with the words "Kindness matters" to remind the world that compassion is never wasted. And so, what began as a moment of shame in a grand boardroom turned into a lifelong lesson for everyone who witnessed it. Never laugh at someone for where they come from, for beneath their struggles may lie the strength to change the world. Because sometimes all it takes is one voice, one powerful voice that dares to say, "Don't laugh at her.